Um, so we're going to be talking a little bit about gut health, and I think that there's a ton of information and some really great takeaways for all of you today. Please feel free to ask questions, interrupt at any point in time, or send something in the chat. I'm so happy to have conversations with all of you. I'll give some time at the end for Q&A as well. And I'm going to shoot over into the chat right now, just my Instagram page for anyone who wants to jump on there and follow me along as well. So let's get started. Okay. Basically, what we're going to kind of go over today, everyone, is a basic understanding of the GI system. We're going to talk a little bit about the symptoms and the causes. Like, why do people get gut dysfunction? Why are we seeing this so much? And why is it such a frustrating piece of everyone's story? Then I'm going to give you, honestly, like without gatekeeping, my recommendations and suggestions to really address underlying gut dysfunction. I'll share with you a little bit about my clients and some of their stories, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, so a little bit about me. As Brittany mentioned, my name is Skylar. I am actually a licensed physician assistant. I work in conventional medicine in family practice. And then I also own this business, a holistic health consulting business. And so, background for me is I really wanted to go into medicine when I was very young. I knew that that was a space that felt really good for me. I love giving back to my community. I'm from the North Central Pennsylvania area, and so I wanted to give back to those in my community. And after being in conventional medicine for a while, I started seeing some of the limitations, right? Where, we might not be able to help people to the best of their abilities. And that was one of the things that was a huge red flag for me. Beyond that, I also have two children, two small boys. And after I had my first son, I started noticing a lot of my own health issues pop up. So, a ton of anxiety, a ton of depression, which we think, oh, postpartum, right? But I also had other things like irregular periods, headaches, acne, these things that were never going on with me before having children. And I went to my conventional medicine doctor, and she was like, things look fine. You're great. Which I'm like, no, I don't feel great. Something's wrong. And that's where I started learning a little bit more about integrative medicine, which is the beautiful blend of both worlds, blending conventional medicine and holistic medicine together so that I could heal myself and resolve those symptoms. And now in my business, I take those techniques and tools to help my clients. So that's a little bit about me, and my passion for healthcare. So let's dive deeper into the gut. And as you guys probably already know, our GI tract is more than just digestion, right? It stems from the mouth. So digestion starts in your mouth where you're chewing your food. How many of us on this call probably like grab food when we're running between like things? We're eating in the car, we're literally working on the phone, eating our food really fast, right? So this is like such a cultural norm for us to rush through meals. And that is the start of our digestion. So it starts in our mouth. It obviously goes down into our stomach and then through our bowels and out, as you can see here in these pictures. And beyond the digestion piece, we know that our gut is related to around 70 or 80% of our immune system alone. It's also very strongly linked with our hormones. It's very strongly linked with our skin. And there's an impact in our metabolism, our detoxification aspects as well. And my favorite is that gut-brain connection. And so this is this little tiny photo here. Everyone is, see those yellow? Those are the nerves. Those are the nerves that supply sensation. It's our vagus nerve to our body. And you can see it's so closely aligned with that gut health and the pattern that we have there. And that's where people get like nervous stomach. So for example, you're like, oh, I'm anxious. I have this thing happening, and your belly's like starts get going and you're running to the bathroom. That's the vagus nerve. That's a great example of the gut-brain connection. So let's talk about symptoms of poor gut health. And I want you guys, as I go through this, to think about like, do I have this? What applies to me? Okay. So things, for example, like acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation. All of those are things we think initially of like underlying gut health issues. I also really strongly link anxiety, depression, and hormonal imbalances to our gut health. If you're having a lot of acne or skin issues, rashes, that's really strongly coming from your gut most of the time. And then autoimmune issues. So people who have like these undiagnosed, unclear autoimmune issues, a lot of times that's stemming from the gut. Brain fog and fatigue, which honestly is probably the number one complaint I hear from women is brain fog and fatigue. And a lot of times that's coming from our gut. And of course, the poor immune system really, really stems from the gut as well. And I want us to think about why do most approaches fail? And really, the reality is most approaches to underlying gut dysfunction are really a one size fits all type of approach. So we focus in on the symptoms where it's like, okay, when you eat gluten, let's remove gluten. Okay, yeah, then you feel a little bit better, right? But then you're not eating gluten anymore. And so it's these extreme dieting, they're one size fits all, and we're not actually fixing the underlying root cause of why you have an issue. Gluten's just a really great example of that. The other piece of it is we're ignoring our stress. And so many women have uncontrolled stress responses. We have a lot of things going on in our lives. The stress is really a big piece of our gut health for sure. So, what are the root causes of gut dysfunction? And so, there's a lot of reason why people have underlying gut dysfunction. And so, one of the biggest things that I just mentioned is stress and how stress really just impacts your gut health. And so, it really affects the mobility of your gut. So, you're not digesting your food as well. The things are not going through your colon as well, and therefore it can cause constipation and or diarrhea, which oftentimes is labeled as an irritable bowel syndrome, for example. The other things that can also affect our gut are something like leaky gut. And so leaky gut, it leads to inflammation. We'll talk a little bit more about what this means and how to like help with that later on in the presentation. But this is a big reason why women are getting inflammation throughout their body, which can cause joint pain, discomfort, that fullness sensation, etc. Dysbiosis, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that word or term before, but dysbiosis means an imbalance of gut bacteria. We all know that in our gut there is good bacteria, but there's also a lot of times bad bacteria as well. And so the expectation is that we're going to have a lot of good bacteria and not a lot of bad bacteria. Dysbiosis is when those are flip-flopped, when we have too much of the bad and not enough of the good, if that makes sense. Infections, so things like parasites, you guys have probably heard of parasites, parasite cleanses, and how those can affect your body as a whole. And this is a really, really big example of people come to me and they have underlying parasites that actually are causing them to have chronic gut issues, which then stem to so many other places in their life. That also goes hand in hand with something called H. pylori, which is an infection that lives in your stomach. And we see this very often. Another one is medication induced. So a lot of times people come to me and they take things, for example, like a PPI. Does anyone here know what that is when I say that? A PPI? No. Okay. A PPI is things like Protonix or omeprazole. They're acid reducing medications, which work really great in the event when people have these things like acid reflux, right? We get them over the counter, you can take them, it abates your symptoms. But what's happening is that low stomach acid now is then going to cause things like maldigestion, which leads to bloating, discomfort, overgrowth of bad bacteria. And so medications themselves can cause gut issues even when the medication is for the gut. So that's like a really good example of medication-induced gut problems. The other things are like NSAIDs, so things like ibuprofen, Motrin, Aleve. So you're taking that because you have a knee ache or your knee feels uncomfortable. But in the long term, what that's also causing is an effect on your GI tract. So that's a good example of some underlying gut dysfunction. And then the last thing I want to mention for causes here are toxin exposure. And so this is a really big one because when we're exposed to toxins in our day-to-day life, it can affect our gut. And so pesticides are a big one on my list here. Has anyone on the call heard of the Dirty Dozen? No. Okay. The Dirty Dozen is a list of a dozen foods that have the most like chemicals on them from the United States and the way in which they are created. So the highest pesticides amount. So it's so easy to find a list of the Dirty Dozen. It doesn't mean don't eat them. So some examples on that list would be like spinach and strawberries, which we all think of like really healthy foods, right? We're like, okay, spinach and strawberries. I thought I'm supposed to eat this stuff. Well, yes, you are, but if it's on the Dirty Dozen list, we have to be super mindful about one, how are we cleaning the products that we get, right? So no more just eating your strawberries or grapes or anything when you're at the grocery store. And then two is if we're gonna buy organic, if we're gonna spend the money on something that's a little bit cleaner, let's look at the list of the Dirty Dozen and make sure those products are the ones that we're buying that are organic, okay? That'll reduce your exposure to pesticides and it'll reduce your risk of getting these toxin buildup. Antibiotics also can cause a lot of underlying gut issues and mold, which unfortunately, a lot of people have mold build up in their house and in their homes. And so those can really wreak havoc on our gut. Any questions about this so far, ladies? No? Okay. And just as like an overview, I want to make sure everyone understands how there is so much connection here between our gut, our hormones, our brain health. All of these things are so collided, and looking at it from a holistic viewpoint really is what makes the impact and really how we get you to your outcome of feeling so much better. So let's talk. This is the bulk of my discussion here, which is the 5R protocol. And this is where I really want most of you guys to take away your next steps, to take away what you should implement in your life. And so this protocol is exactly what I use with my clients. This is exactly how I walk my clients through healing their gut. And it's really important that we go forward through this process, starting at step one. Many people try to heal their gut and they jump right in to maybe step three. And they've skipped step one and two. And when doing that, you don't get great results. So step one is where we remove things. And this is where we remove things like triggering foods, inflammatory type things, right? Inflammatory foods. We also, if we have results on what's going on in your gut, we really try to remove those gut infections, remove the overgrowth, take away any of the medicines that you're taking that could potentially be causing these to get worse. So if you're taking anti-inflammatories every day, how can we wean you off of those, for example? And even trying to remove some chronic stress is a piece of this for sure. And really what I want you to think about is, in the past, have you removed a ton of foods from your gut and your diet? And did that really help? Or did that get you to where you wanted to be? Because so commonly people come to me and what happens is they remove more and more and more until they're left with like a very small handful of list of foods that are considered like their safe foods, right? And they're like, well, I actually don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat eggs. I don't eat da 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 da. And so then they're like really only eating this much amount of healthy, safe foods because they get symptoms and they feel really unwell. And removing, although it is so important, removing alone is not what heals your gut, guys. It's just step one in the piece of it. The long-term plan of a really healthy, good gut is not having to avoid every type of food out there, right? And if you would have done that, if it would have worked, removing X, Y, and Z would have made you feel so much better already, right? That's just the clear process. So that's just a piece of the story. Then we move into step two, which is replacing. And this is where it is so important that we actually support your body in breaking down food properly. Because this is what people don't realize is you can eat the healthiest foods in the world, but if your body doesn't digest them, it will still cause you to have symptoms. So for example, how many of you guys get like bloating after you eat like really clean, healthy food? I hear this all the time. Like every time I eat broccoli, I feel so bloated. Or every time I have a salad, my stomach is huge. So, that's a really it's not a food problem, it's a digestion problem, right? You're not digesting the food properly. And so in this step, in step two, we add in things to help you digest better. And that is simply things like stomach acid. You need stomach acid to digest your foods. And so if you're taking medicines that reduce your stomach acid, you're probably not digesting your food, right? And people who are eating all the right things, they really have removed all the stuff and they're still having these issues. Digestive enzymes can be so helpful at this phase. And so that's a supplement that you can get and you take it right before you eat your meals. And so for a lot of you, if you're thinking, okay, I've already removed everything, now what? Maybe digestive enzymes is a really great place for you to start. Is start taking a digestive enzyme 30 minutes before your meals to see if that helps you digest better. Okay. Bile acid and bile flow is really important. So for those of you who've had your gallbladder out, this is a key one for you because a lot of times there's just not enough bile left, and we really need to work on utilizing what's there to help you with digestion. Okay. Phase three, we're going to step into, which is reinoculating. And this is where we bring back the good gut bacteria. So everyone usually jumps to phase three where they're like, I have digestive issues. I'm going to add a probiotic, right? I feel like a lot of people have done that. You guys might have tried that before. And it really doesn't fix anything, right? You take it and you're like, man, I just don't notice any difference. Well, that's because we skipped phase one and phase two. And throwing probiotics at an imbalanced gut without addressing any of the earlier symptoms, it really just doesn't work. So reinoculation in phase three, it's about creating an environment where the good bacteria can actually thrive, not just adding more and hoping for the best, right? So this is the phase where tailoring in, you guys have probably heard like, man, there's so many different types of probiotics out there, right? There's this strand and that strand. What should I be taking? And then again, you've taken it and it doesn't do a lot of help. And so tailoring into exactly the probiotic your body needs specifically is so important in phase three as well. And then we go into phase four, which is repairing or healing your gut lining. This is so important. This is where we focus on healing your gut lining itself. So that way you don't get things like inflammation or leaky gut or immune reactions, okay? Because when the gut lining itself is impaired, good and bad bacteria leave and leak into your body. And that's where people are like, man, my joints really hurt every time I eat X, Y, and Z. Well, that's your body leaking it from your gut into your body. And so I really want you to think about, is your gut lining needing more support? Are you having signs that your gut lining is weak or you have a leaky gut? And that would be things like food sensitivities, joint pain, inflammation, or autoimmune reactions, and skin changes. Those are the big ones that I say, okay, we don't necessarily initially think my gut, but they're the red flags that are likely coming from your gut, okay? And with this heal and seal process that I typically use, the goal of it is so we don't go back to where we were. So we're gonna seal it up and prevent this from happening. And so for those of you who are like, man, the probiotic I'm taking is working and it works really well. I just don't know how to prevent myself from keep going back every other month, right? To like not feeling so well. I would encourage you to consider adding in supplements like glutamine or zinc or omega-3s. And what those do is they support your gut lining and they reduce the reoccurrence of gut dysfunction. And then the last phase is to rebalance. And this is honestly like the most important step, rebalancing just your life as a whole. And this is for me, where as a holistic healthcare provider is something I think is so important. So in this step, we look at everything as a big picture. So we look at your sleep, we look at your stress, we look at how and when you eat, and we also look at your emotional regulation. And so I want you all to take a short little inventory on where you stand with those things. What does that look like in your life? And do you feel like your body is mostly in a calm, supported state, or are you constantly feeling like you're pushing, running, or going on empty, right? Because that's when your gut also is taking the hit. So really kind of taking that time to, yeah, someone said sleep is so important. Sleep is so important to your body as a whole. But I also think so many people, so many women struggle with sleep. I think that's probably one of the top things I also hear people complain about. So if you feel like you've tried everything and nothing has worked, I really want you to look at this stepwise process and think, what steps have you skipped and where can you go back and kind of start over? And what I would really encourage for a big, big takeaway for everyone on this call is some simple daily foundations. So obviously whole nutrient dense foods are our primary goal. And so if you're eating a lot of processed foods, that is a place where we can just make your first change. If you're having a lot of inflammatory type foods, that would be things like dairy and eggs, and gluten. It's time to really like wean back on those a little bit, okay? Because inflammatory foods are really going to affect your underlying gut health. I also want all of you to try for the remainder of this week and into next week, how can you eat in a calm state? Just assess, how do you normally eat your lunch? Are you out? Are you running? Are you snacking in the car? Or are you sitting? Are you chewing? I want you to take that time. Take 10 to 15 minutes where you just sit at your desk, sit at your table, and chew your food, and just let your body start the digestive process. That's so important. Next is balancing your blood sugar, which is so key. And I think the most important thing for balancing your blood sugar, and I want all of you to take away, is stop skipping meals. I think women as a whole, we really struggle with skipping meals because life is busy and we're going here and there. And so, what I really encourage all of you to do is just pause, don't skip any of your meals, and really just make sure you're eating at consistent times. Of course, hydration and minerals are really, really important. And so, not only water is great, but I also would encourage you to use some mineral packets or minerals from one of your favorite companies that are super clean. I love Just Ingredients, if you guys have ever heard of them. They're a great option for getting your minerals in on a daily basis. And last but not least is making sure you're having good daily bowel movements. Although this seems crazy, bowel movements are our excretion process. It's so important that we're excreting these toxins on a daily basis. If you're not having a good bowel movement every day, those toxins are building up. Your body's probably feeling poor. And so making sure these foundations are happening consistently for you. But for the people who are having these things happen, they've done all the right things. That's where digging a little bit deeper is so important. And I always love to compare conventional medicine to functional medicine in this case. And so, conventional medicine, of course, we look to identify a disease. So maybe you've had an upper endoscopy, maybe you've had a colonoscopy, and sometimes things can be abnormal, but when things aren't abnormal, then we just treat the symptoms in conventional medicine. So we give you a prescription medication to help manage how you're feeling, to reduce those symptoms, right? In functional medicine, what we really look for is not only do you have a disease? Obviously, that's a concern, but we're looking for outside that ideal or optimal range. Are you not fitting in the place that you should be? And then we're trying to identify what is the root cause. What is actually causing your symptoms and why is it happening? And then how do we fix it? And we really look at this again from a holistic viewpoint. So the GI map is a gut microbiome test. I'm just curious, has anyone heard of a gut GI map before? Brittany, yeah, okay, a couple of you. Okay, so the GI map, it's a gut microbiome test. It's the testing tool that I typically recommend where we dive deeper into looking at what's going on exactly inside of your gut health. This is where you find answers, and it comes out like this, where you see good bacteria, bad bacteria, infections, parasites, autoimmune issues, all of those things that come from your gut health. So it really, really gives us some clarity as to what's happening and how to trudge forward on that 4Rs stepwise process. I do want to show you this really quick client example. Let me open this up. I want to make sure you guys, can you see that, Brittany? Yeah, okay.
Hold on, I don't see a video.
Oh, you don't see the video?
Nope, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to let me stop sharing. Up now.
There we go. Yep.
Okay.
My name is Carrie Bradley. I am a mom of two girls. I was struggling with weight issue, irritable bowel symptoms, bloating, digestive issues, mental health and stress ailments, anxiety. My biggest transformation was seeing 60 to 70% improvement in my symptoms just in a short amount of time. I was able to lose 13 pounds, multiple inches. Knowing the results and knowing the root cause is definitely a key. I've tried for years to self-diagnose. I've tried Google my symptoms. I wanted somebody that was going to give me the individualized attention. Somebody that knew conventional medicine and functional medicine, understood life as a mom, understood business ownership and the stresses that we are under. And I wasn't just somebody on the other side of a screen. In the past, I feel like it was a copy-paste protocol. This time was different. We used those test results. Skylar analyzed them in depth and then explained them to me. This time I know what the problem is and I know the path that I need to take. My only hesitation was that I wasn't going to see any different results, but I was wrong. It was the opposite. I saw those results. If you are on the fence, bite the bullet and do have to jump in with both feet. You can't put a price tag on your health.
Okay, that was just like a very quick example of how, in this client case, she had actually worked with multiple other functional and holistic practitioners without actually still getting to the underlying root cause. And that's where functional medicine testing can be so helpful in cases for those women on the call who are trying everything, who've done all the right things, and who followed these steps that I've mentioned here. If you've done all these things, the next best step is to really dig deeper and get to the root cause. That's where we're able to actually come up with a game plan specific for you. And that's exactly how I help women. A very quick like plug on what that looks like is with the women I work with, we do root cause investigation through functional medicine testing. All of my clients get those GI map testing and test results so we can really dive deeper. And all of my clients also get really deep holistic testing for their hormones and their cortisol, etc. And then we work on those results to come up with a game plan that fits with your current lifestyle. We look at what your frustrating symptoms are, where you're at in your health and wellness journey, and where you want to go, with the goal of getting you there, walking that path, and through using support and accountability and really transformational medicine, in all honesty. And so, just as a completely free, I do this, I just want everyone to know I offer completely free consults. So, for anyone who's looking just to have a better understanding, to want to have a conversation with someone who understands conventional and functional medicine, I do offer free consults. I would love to kind of deep dive into what's going on in your health. I'll drop the link in the chat so that way you guys are able to see that if you're interested. And we can kind of dive deeper. So let me open up the floor to any questions or thoughts from any women or anyone on the call.
I did want to just add, Skylar, I wish I had known about your business a couple years ago because I was driving to Pittsburgh once a week for 8 weeks to
Yeah.
see
Oh my God.
specialists. Yes. And like my whole life I was masked with medicine. Like I would have this stomach pain all the time and they would just give me all these pills to keep taking. And then
Yeah.
finally in my 30s, my body was like, no more. And so I found this specialist, but I have to tell you, there's so many products out there like the probiotics, and I was trying them over the counter on my own, and they would make me so sick.
Yeah.
And then it was like when you found out when you did the GI mapping that you do, and
Yep.
sometimes you do additional blood work if needed, like
Yep.
you said you offer, it is amazing that when you look at that GI mapping, somebody like Skylar can say, oh, this is why that other probiotic was making you sick. You need to
Yeah.
try this one. And all that trial and error can save you Like just go get the mapping and save
Yeah.
yourself all the pain from
Yeah.
like going to Target and being overwhelmed. And then I learned that a lot of this stuff at Target or CVS, like they're not real. You
Yeah.
might as well be taking like just
Yeah.
placebo pills. So anyway, that's like my
Yeah.
2 cents and why some of you are probably like, why is Brittany like forcing us to take this class? I'm not forcing you, but I am
Hmm.
very passionate about it because I think it works. Like if you're getting
Hmm.
stomach aches weekly, headaches all the time, if you get weird rashes, if you're feeling tired all the time, like all of those can be healed right through here. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'll
No.
open the floor to everybody else who has questions.
Thank you, Brittany, for sharing. Honestly, I think that's so true. And, your story is a great example of how women, we all just kind of have put on this label of this is normal for us to feel like this. And so we go through life for years sometimes where it's like, we don't feel great. But since when is it normal to feel like crap in our own bodies, right? And I just want you all to know that you do not have to feel that way. And like Brittany mentioned, you can like get to the results of what you want to be so much faster once you dive deeper rather than just like guessing, guessing, guessing all the time. So I appreciate that, Brittany. Any other questions, ladies? Okay. I'm not
Actually, I
seeing
do.
anything.
I always have
Yeah.
questions. Thank you so much. It was amazing. I love it. I love it. I've kind of been on the similar journey as Brittany in a sense that first thing to kind of go, I'm neurodivergent, so
Mhm.
there's a lot of I know connection between gut and your mind, brain balance, that
Yeah.
second brain. So I've kind of struggled with that for a very long time. So I guess my question is, would the GI mapping help with understanding what, or is it different? Because I've never gone this deep with it. Is it different? Would you be able to help someone in a neurodivergent capacity? Because I know that we kind of process some, I have the MTHFR gene.
Yep.
Um, so like understanding that we kind of sometimes, because we are wired differently, also
Mhm.
our gut kind of acts differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually have worked with multiple other neurodivergent people, Amy, and people who have the MTFR gene. I see that actually a lot. And so I think the beauty of what you're asking is, are we able to find things that can help with some of that? And are we able
Hmm.
to work with kind of where you're at already? Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
I
because
think
I'm
yes to both.
okay, great. Because I'm like Brittany. I'm like, I've bought every single possible supplement out there that's supposed to help with my freaking brain, calming the squirrels.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I would like to know that what I'm actually purchasing is actually going to be beneficial for my body, instead of just
Yeah.
blowing money everywhere and not really feeling a result. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Okay, awesome. Sign me up.
Absolutely, Amy. And I think just to tag on that a little bit too is, the beauty of the GI map gives us so much clarity on what you need and how we can utilize that and make you feel so much better, but also without having to only use supplements for my approach, where we can use lifestyle things, we can use dietary changes, slight, tiny things that can just make a huge difference. And it's very personalized as well, Amy. I think that one of the beauties, as my client video demonstrated, is I have no copy paste protocol. Like this isn't Chat
Awesome.
GPT doing it, it's me. And I am coming up with the exact plans and protocols for every single one of my clients based on where they're at, where they want to go, and using their results to get them there.
And that's awesome. Do you also deal with the parasites? And I know it says that you did, but understanding, like, do you have a protocol that you work with as well in
Yes.
helping? Because I know that that was a big thing on my mind is
Yeah,
that.
that's a great question. So many women, I think, right now, try to do these parasite cleanses or parasite protocols, and don't tolerate them very well and feel really poorly. And so, a lot of times, first off, it's just important to know if you even have parasites to begin with, right? Like, otherwise, why are we doing this? And if you do, absolutely, we have a game plan, a protocol, a stepwise process in which I walk you through to get those gone as well. Perfect. Anyone else? Any other questions at all?
Hi, so my name's Mariah, and
Hi.
I am currently being genetic tested for cancer carrying genes. And I was just wondering because they were talking to me preliminary about different diets and things that I would be able to do to lower my risk. The women in my family have all had cancer. And so I was wondering if that's something you would be able to kind of help direct with as well.
Yeah, that's such a great part of your story, Mariah. And I think that women and women's cancer, like, I see so much of this, unfortunately, especially in women so young. And so a lot of it, a lot of pieces of this is what we call epigenetics. And that's the term where we're using lifestyle factors like diet, movement, nutrition, stress management to either turn on or turn off the genes that cause you to get cancer, right? So we all have got these innate genes that we inherited, and epigenetics is where we learn to do certain things to either turn those genes on or turn them off. And so that's absolutely something that I work with my clients on if that's a piece of their story.
Perfect. You may have said that at the beginning, but I joined a little late. So thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you so much for asking. That's a really, really good one. All right. Anyone else? Feel free, or if you just want to shoot it over in the chat.
I have a
Okay.
quick question. I joined a little late. So do you only work with women or do you do this type of work with men as well?
Ooh, great. Okay, so I typically work with women. Like I'm mostly a women's health coach. I do work with men in different capacities. So I would work with men in a private one-on-one setting if that's what they're looking for. I also do just functional medicine testing for men, and a lot of my clients' husbands come to me, boyfriends, etc., to get some further support because once they've gone through the process, they're like, wait, we need more for them too. So, yes, I mainly work with women, but I do have the doors open for men as well.
Okay.
Anybody else? Feel free to ask. No judgment here.
And if not, ladies, like I mentioned, I dropped my Instagram on earlier in the chat. So feel free to go there. You guys can send me a private DM or message, whatever works best for you. I'm an open book. I love to support women. Again, this is my passion. And if you want to dive deeper into where you're at, you can absolutely schedule a time, a completely free consult where we just chat through where you're at and what the next steps might look like for you. So I would love to have more conversation with any of you who feel that that might be really supported and aligning for you.
Could you
Thank
drop your Instagram one more time for the people that came late?
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
hmm All right, I popped them into the chat for you guys too.
thank you so much. Anybody else have anything to add or ask? All right. Well, thank you so much, Skylar. I so appreciate it. And if anybody didn't grab the contact information, I, of course, have Skylar's info, so don't hesitate to reach out for it. But this was so helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Brittany. And thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Again, if you need me for anything, just reach out. I would love to support you. Have a great day, guys.
See ya.
Bye.